What if reality is less like a rock-solid stage and more like a program running on unknown hardware? Tonight, we'll explore the smartest arguments for and against the simulation hypothesis, and what it would actually mean for your life. By the end, you'll have a clear checklist for evidence, a skeptic's toolkit, and a question only you can answer. First, the vibe check. Déjà vu, glitches in memory, improbable coincidences. The brain loves patterns and sometimes invents them. Before we jump to "we're in the Matrix," we need logic, not goosebumps. So let's test the idea the way philosophers and physicists do, with arguments that stay standing when the cool factor fades. The most famous starting point is Nick Bostrom's simulation argument, which is not "we are simulated," but a trilemma. It says at least one of these must be true. Advanced civilizations never reach massive computing power. They can but don't run ancestor simulations. Or, if lots of simulations exist, it's statistically likely we're in one. Why does anyone take this seriously? Because the universe looks surprisingly compressible. A handful of equations describe insane amounts of behavior. There's also the digital physics angle. Maybe space and time have a smallest length and tick like pixels and frames, hinted at by the Planck scale. If reality were computed, we might see rendering shortcuts, a universal speed limit, probabilistic events when details aren't demanded, or patterns that look like error correction. But none of that proves a simulation. It only shows that a simulated world could look like ours. What would count as actual evidence? Start with digital fingerprints. If the cosmos were running on a lattice, extreme particles might betray that grid with directional anomalies. Another idea, resource limits. If computation is expensive, the universe might economize. Randomness appears where exact detail isn't requested. Precision increases when measured repeatedly, like progressive rendering. Tests here are hard. Physicists look for high-energy signatures and ultrafine irregularities. So far, results are compatible with ordinary physics. Next, the probability game. If future civilizations create countless simulated histories, simulations vastly outnumber base realities, so being in one becomes statistically likely. The catch is the if. We're stacking assumptions about future motives, ethics, and incentives. Maybe they decide running ancestors is cruel or illegal. Also, cost matters. Simulating a universe down to every quark is absurdly expensive. Smarter designs would simulate coarsely, refining only where observers look. Like video games render only what's in view. Quantum mechanics even gives cover for that. Outcomes are probabilistic until measured, perfect for lazy evaluation. But that's interpretation, not proof. Let's visit the other side. Maybe there is no base computer. Maybe reality just is, and math is how minds compress the world, not how it's built. Occam's razor asks for the fewest new entities. Adding simulators, servers, and policies is a huge leap unless it explains something we can't explain otherwise. There's also the simulation regress. If we're simulated, are our simulators simulated too? And who runs the top layer? Now the part people rarely ask. How should you live if you might be simulated? Two options land in the same place: be decent. If it's base reality, kindness matters. If it's simulated, kindness might be the test. A respect the sysadmin idea suggests avoiding needless destruction or cruelty that could trigger shutdown, or invite scrutiny you don't want. It's not fear, it's stewardship. Here's a field guide for curious skeptics. Keep a log of rare coincidences, not to prove anything, but to measure how often low-probability events really occur in your life. When possible, prefer quantum random sources over algorithmic ones in experiments. If you ever saw sustained statistical bias, that would be interesting enough to share with experts. If you build models, ask, does the hypothesis predict something simpler theories can't? Something precise enough to test? If not, enjoy it as philosophy, not physics. Personally, I think the simulation hypothesis is a superb mirror. It forces us to ask what counts as evidence, where our intuitions mislead us, and how meaning survives uncertainty. If we are simulated, curiosity and empathy might be the only universal outputs worth logging. If we are not, they're still the best code to run. So, are we living in a simulation, or are we pattern-hunting story creatures in a mathematically elegant universe? Tell me where you land and why. If this exploration expanded your thinking, please subscribe, leave a like, and share this with someone who loves a good paradox. See you in the next one.